being on the IT side of things, the CIO, I started to get concerned around, well, hey, everyone has these personal accounts out there. Everyone is experimenting with these tools, and they're likely putting company information in there. How do we get some control over this? But I could also see that it was a capability. Like, this is something that we had to teach our team members, but not everyone was using it. And that's sort of where working with you guys and talking to you, Adam, around what bootcamp could offer, so we could potentially get our executives and get them to see what I was seeing, what some others were seeing. And I think the bootcamp is what really helped us create that structure of what we wanted to do based on what we learned.
This is AI First with Adam and Andy, the show that takes you straight to the front lines of AI innovation in business. I'm Andy Sack, and alongside my co-host, Adam Brotman. Each episode, we bring you candid conversation with business leaders transforming their businesses with AI. No fluff, just real talk and actionable use cases and insights for you. Welcome back to AI First with Adam and Andy. We have a special guest, Keith from Cabi. Welcome, Keith.
Hey, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, Keith.
Good to see you guys.
Keith, do you want to introduce yourself and your company to give our audience a little bit of background?
Sure.
And context?
Keith Fairclough. I've been with Cabi now for just under 4 years. I came in as the CIO with the goal of modernizing our tech stack and a number of other key strategic projects on the IT side. But Cabi, the brand, we've been around for 23 years. We are at women's apparel. We are a 9-figure business. We have 240 employees across our home office, warehouse, retail stores. We do business predominantly in the US, but we do have small businesses in Canada and the UK. But we are in the direct sales world. So we predominantly sell our clothes through what we call stylists, who are independent sales reps. And we have about 2,000 stylists, just over 2,000 stylists that we support. And they're out there, and they, in essence, are like, think of them as like a wholesale showroom. They have a sample collection that they use to sell, and they do it through a network of hostesses that they have within their circle, and then their clients. And we're a cross between, I guess, direct sales and direct consumer e-commerce, because we ship directly to the client. So someone purchases something from one of our stylists, the stylist doesn't take that they do the transaction, but we ship directly to the client. But we're in a growth period right now. We're really focused on growth. We have a large scale Shopify replatforming project that we're working on, a number of other key strategic projects, but AI came up, over the last year and has, in essence, become a core part of our overall strategy here at Cabi.
And so, just to orient people, you're sort of, you may take offense to this, but just to orient people, you're broadly in the Mary Kay cosmetics. When you say direct sales, it's you have parties and home parties, and people are selling clothing to people that they invite to their homes.
That is correct. Think that Arbonne, Herbalife, Beauty Counter, when it was around, that's the business.
Well, Keith, it's great to have you on because for a number of reasons. First of all, you're just a great source of inspiration for, I think, a lot of people are going to listen to this around how they can put into practice some of the things Andy and I are constantly talking about in our book, on our speaking tour. And let's, and I'm intimately familiar with most of the story of your AI journey, but I don't know all of it. And I'm actually eager to sort of ask you some things. So let's go back to the beginning. So in 2024, you actually approached Andy and I and our firm and were like, I really want to double down on my passion around generative AI and how to use it to help propel Cabi in a transformative way to improve its business, improve its customer experience, its stylist experience, et cetera. And so you took that initiative, and so bring us back to that moment about, what you were thinking about Gen AI and sort of what you wanted to get out of both working with us, but more importantly, like what you wanted Cabi to get out of becoming an AI first organization. And just go back to that moment and let's talk a little bit about how your journey's been going.
Yeah. And I think it probably started in 2023, like most of those that jumped on the ChatGPT train early on after they launched in November of 2022. For me, it was a lot of experimentation on my own, and I knew other people within Cabi were using it on the marketing team, and the models weren't as powerful then as they are now. But there was a lot of experimentation going on, and throughout that year, I being on the IT side of things, the CIO, I started to get concerned around, well, hey, everyone has these personal accounts out there. Everyone is experimenting with these tools, and they're likely putting company information in there. How do we get some control over this? So that was like sort of the yellow flag. We had to do something. But I could also see that it was a capability. Like, this is something that we had to teach our team members, but not everyone was using it. There was still the concern of like, oh, I can't use that. I don't want to use AI. I can write my own thing kind of world. And I wanted to do something, but I wasn't sure how to do it. I think if I was to just go out and do it on my own at that time without getting any support, I probably would have tried to find a project to do or a tool to build versus building it as a capability. And that's sort of where working with you guys and talking to you, Adam, around what bootcamp could offer so we could potentially get our executives and get them to see what I was seeing, what some others were seeing, was really the point. And I think the bootcamp, I didn't even have a frame of reference going into the bootcamp of what we would do after. And I think the bootcamp is what really helped us create that structure of what we wanted to do based on what we learned.
So at the time that you were, you approached us, we did the bootcamp, tell us a little bit about, because you're CTO, CIO, and did you, how did you interact with the CEO of Cabi? And tell us a little bit about like her role in terms of sponsoring what you were doing.
Yeah, Katie Malone's our CEO, former chief marketing officer, and was promoted to CEO. And Katie and I have a really good working relationship just in general. I think she trusts not my judgment, but the team's judgment here at Cabi on the IT side of the direction we want to take the organization. And while she was not part of the boot camp, we did if I remember correctly, it was 3 C-suite executives and 3 director VP level executives. If there was a lesson learned there, there are many lessons learned to share with the team. I would include the CEO in that, in that boot camp if I could do it over again, for sure.
Yeah.
The good news is that we had that relationship. So when we came out of that boot camp, myself, the COO, and the others, we were able to bring it to Katie. And Katie was kind of experimenting as well. And we all had I know you guys used the phrase, our holy shit moment in that session. And we sat down with Katie and like, we have to do something here.
What was the holy shit moment for you?
The holy shit moment for me was way back when, was just the fact that I grew up as a management consultant in the first half of my career, and I lived in PowerPoint, right? That's all. You create a deck after deck after deck, and you'd sit there forever. You'd come up with the strategy and you'd have to lay it out and what all the talking points were going to be. And the fact that I could do those types of things now in a matter of minutes in my office, I've had many holy shit moments since then with image generation and video and talking to my phone in the car while I'm brainstorming, driving to work. And by the time I get to my thoughts are organized for me for the meeting I'm about to walk into. But the first one I think was very simple. It was like, oh, this thing that used to be the bane of my existence, creating PowerPoint decks, the content of it is something that I can do pretty seamlessly. And it was thinking the way I wanted to think, even though I technically didn't always think that way. I don't know how to explain that, but
yeah.
Now, going back to the executive sponsorship from the CEO. So one of the reasons I asked is I know that Katie your CEO was very supportive of the boot camp, even though she didn't participate. It's interesting to hear you say that in hindsight, you would have sort of strong-armed her to participate. But I remember after the boot camp, it must have gone well enough that you were like, let's do the workshop for the entire company. And I drove down and led not an all day, but a multi-hour session with the entire company. And Katie stood up before you and I talked. It was really your and my show, but like, she stood up and was like the sponsor of this thing to say, hey, like I'm a big fan of what we're doing here. And she was almost a prototype of what we like to see in terms of if CEOs aren't going to be the person, which they rarely are, being the person in your position that's actually catalyzing the whole effort for the organization, having them at least, be sort of the key sponsor behind the scenes of the person that's catalyzing. Like, that's so effective. And I just want to give a shout out to her and you for like leading in this way. Right. And I feel like it really allowed it to be effective. So I wanted to call that out. I mean, do you have any other thoughts on like leadership and executive sponsorship that you want to comment on?
No, I agree. I think having her in my corner as we were doing this was a huge advantage as we tried to push this out. And we had the support of the overall executive team, which was great. But where I think she really got on board, which, one of the key lessons that we learned in the boot camp, which kind of hinted at before, if I had just gone out and tried to do it on my own, I might have just tried to execute a project or tried to build some tool or bring in some tool. But we learned, I think you guys have the Moderna use case that you share in the boot camp. I believe it's in the book as well, maybe as a chapter, but learning how it's about creating a capability and upskilling the organization and creating like an AI literate organization. And that's the approach we took. I think we kind of mimicked them. Clearly we are not at the scale of a Moderna and what they're doing, but that structure made a lot of sense to us. And when we explained it to Katie, like, this is the way we want to do it. We want to train the organization, we want to lift everyone up at the same time, whether it's for the benefit of Cabi or just the benefit of the team member, right? This is a skill that they could take anywhere with them if they start to learn how to use the tools. But she was once we shared that with her, it made it even easier to get her on board and to do that org training. And I'd love to dive into the org training at some point, but that's the next step in our journey.
Yeah. So let's continue on your journey a little here. Let me ask you, you said that going into the boot camp, you and the other five or six colleagues that went to the boot camp were already kind of excited about AI, but this was a moment for you guys to go to the next level and to sort of become almost a de facto AI council of sorts for a moment for the company. Tell us about like what surprised you in the boot camp, or like how did you propel out of the boot camp and out of the all company workshop? Let's talk about like what were some of the things that you were hoping to accomplish that you did or didn't accomplish, and what were some of the things that surprised you? And now that you sort of carry on as an AI first company.
Yeah, I think for the boot camp, the great thing that came out of that is we all heard the same lessons at the same time. We had our own opinions based on how we were using AI in our own personal life and at work, but we all heard the same messaging. I think we also heard that the importance of sort of the AI council or, your AI use policy. You guys helped us with that. You had a framework for that, and we kind of took it and made it our own here at Cabi. Another lesson learned, we didn't create the council. It kind of became myself and another person. But we did have a use policy. We published that use policy. So I think what came out of it that helped us that we wanted to get, and I think we got even more, was structure. We took, I think it was part boot camp, part other lessons. We created like this journey for us, which was going to be awareness, adoption, collaboration, and then optimization and scaling. That's the way we kind of look at it, to kind of measure ourselves where we are on this journey. And all of these things came out of the boot camp for us heading into the org training.
So let's get into the meat and potatoes of some examples. Like, what are some of the things at Cabi coming now out of all that, like that you would point to as things that, barring the effort that you and the team led, wouldn't have happened and now are happening with AI, that you want to kind of give some examples around?
Yeah, we even before we got to, I think this is important because before we got to the teams building, as we came out of our org training, which was we trained just under 100 team members at Cabi. we needed to follow up with something. So we did the weekly AI open office hours. We did monthly AI org-wide meetings, of which we did very similar to Moderna. We had competitions for GPTs. We were giving out $250 gift cards for the best GPT based on the teams voting for it. And some of them were just creative and fun. Some of them were maybe potentially operational. And we've had early adopters. We have people that aren't using it as much even today. But the things that have come out of it that were almost immediate benefits to us were the communications team was using it to help with, we do a ton of content, whether it's written content, video content, live content, a ton of communication out there. Everyone in every organization is writing an email or writing their script or writing something that they're going to potentially be on a podcast. They get it over to the communications team. The communications team has to go through and work through all of our nomenclature, the words we use, the acronyms. Now everyone runs it through a GPT. The GPT cleans it up first and everything. Then the communication team takes off and runs with it. Another example, more recent example, is the marketing team. They've become strong adopters of AI, and they're collaborating across their team. But they've worked within Adobe and they've learned ChatGPT. They understand the tools that are out there. We spend a lot of money today on retouching photos. So we'll do a photo shoot, and there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of photos. But we can only afford to get, let's say, 64. I think the number is 64 photos retouched. That's the only budget that we have. And traditionally, those would become the photos that we would use for everything, whether it was e-com, whether it was retail store posters, whether it was something that we're going to do at a live presentation, whether it's going on social. You could use those 64, and those other photos became almost useless. Now what they're able to do is there's a tool that, forget the name of the tool, but they can take these extra photos, take 2 reference photos from the original 64 and give it to the AI tool and say, I need to retouch these photos I'm about to give you to be like these 2. It doesn't make them this 100% the same quality, but it makes them good enough where we can use them in some of these other channels. So it's not that we're saving money, because we wouldn't have spent that money anyway because we had a budget, but we're actually getting significant more use out of the investment that we made into all of these other photos across different channels for marketing. Those are 2. I mean, I could go on. We have a number of examples that the team has done really well on, everything down to production and how we deal with duty and tariff assignment.
So it's hitting every function. I don't mean to put you on the spot to quantify sort of how much more productive or capable you are, but like kind of give some color to like stepping back, like these are the kind of things as a company that we're able to do that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Yeah, I would say we definitely brand our journey as AI first. We want to have that mindset. Do I think we are there yet? No, I think we're still in this, late adoption phase / some teams collaborating, some not. I even before, and when we look at where the benefits are, talking to the teams, they're regularly, 50%, they're cutting time to do things by 50%. We would really like to look at it as a force multiplier for us, right? How do we get to every person doing, twice as much work as they can do today with, this tool or tools that they have in front of them. But we are in that process now, Adam, of measuring. Like I for sure could come up with, we talk about the sprint mate within our IT team. They've, figured out a way to look at historical sizing of tickets previously, understanding those, and then running new tickets through the system to understand what effort it might look like in order for us to work on a ticket. That
was a custom GPT that your team came up with.
It was, yeah.
That's
the IT team came up with that one.
I love it. Sprint mate.
The IT support team. So we have multiple support teams. We have a support team that supports our stylists, which we call CAMs. They're also early adopters. There, I think, is a success for us because they were tooling around with it, using it, and then we launched our enterprise version of ChatGPT. They started using it as helping turn around responses and work on their communication with stylists. and then they used Zendesk, and then Zendesk came out with its AI tools. And what I like to think that, and Anne, who leads the team, that they now had the confidence to vet that tool to see if it would even be worth it. Because there's so many tools being thrown at us that they say are AI, or I have this AI thing. They were able to vet it, know exactly what it is that it did, and we ended up purchasing it. We haven't used it yet, but we're about to implement it. But they made that call and they brought it back to us. They pitched it. They said, this is why we want to do it. This is why it'll take us to the next level from just using ChatGPT. So those types of things have been, I can't measure them yet, but we will measure at some point.
Keith, I'm curious what the most unexpected positive aspect of Cabi using AI, and the most unexpected negative thing is of Cabi using AI, Cabi employees.
Unexpected positive, I think the adoption for us. I know that's not a very exciting answer, but that was a goal for us. We did a survey when we first started, and we did a survey about 7 months in. We tried to measure two things. It wasn't the most scientific survey, but we asked some adoption, like how we're using it today versus how we use it in the future. And then we also documented what processes do you think you want to use it for? And we asked a similar question 7 months later of like, hey, did you use it for those processes?
Yeah.
And what benefits did you see? We've got the results from the adoption stuff. I could read off some of them to you. I think they're pretty interesting.
Share.
We haven't done the full measurement yet of the processes, but we will. We just got that out to the team. I'm going to just read it here. I have it because it's easier for me to do that. But so regular frequency of, overall adoption rose from 59% of respondents having ever used AI to now 98% using it in their current role. And then within those groups, at the beginning, you had some that were never using it at 28% or so. That dropped to about 7% once a day. And then we had frequency 3 times a day. That was at 23%. That jumped to 49%. Those that were using it 6 times per day was at 5%, was now at 23%. We had
that's pretty amazing.
Confidence go from 30, feeling they had very high confidence, 30% to 43%. The skill rating of 1 to 4, beginner to advanced, a 1.9 to 2.5. Are they excited? Are they talking about it within their departments? Went from 68% to 83%. So it's again not scientific, but it helps us understand if we're doing the right things. And don't get me wrong, we did a lot wrong. We meant to do an AI.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a sec. Yeah. Unexpected negative thing from the AI transition.
I think we still have some individuals who are concerned about AI and how we might use it. As things become more prevalent, especially on the video and image generation, the fact that it can create an image of me wearing this product. I think there's some people concerned of, would we ever actually put that into market? We don't think the net benefit is there for us to ever do something like that. We will use it internally for inspiration. We've had some team members just be concerned of what AI means, holistically to the world. But there haven't been a ton of negatives. I think I lost some people at the beginning that were hoping it could do more. So when I took my BI team and the finance team, at that time, code interpreter wasn't that great when we were doing our initial GPTs 9-10 months ago.
Yeah, and 03 wasn't out.
Yeah, and 03, and now with deep research, I wish I had worked with them maybe 3 months ago and started getting, but that we kind of lost them for a bit, and they kind of were like, hey, it's just not for us. It's not going to work for us. And when they did that, they threw the baby out with the bathwater because they didn't use it for anything. So I would say that was a negative. But that's part of
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Adam, now you were going to ask for advice.
No, that is interesting. I was going to say, and Keith, you just touched on it a little bit, almost implicitly in what you just said. But what advice So if someone's in your position, they don't have to be CTO, they could be a leader at an organization that kind of has the wherewithal to say, I want to be the catalyst leader at my organization, you know, to help my organization adopt AI, leverage AI, be AI first, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
What would it, now that you've gone through this, like what advice would you have for that leader? And by the way, you're not allowed to say call Adam and Andy and hire Forum 3, although we'll appreciate the gratuitous plug. But that, in all seriousness, what advice would you have executive about what you've learned from this last year?
Yeah, and I mean, jokes aside, I would go to you guys again. I think there's it,
Thanks.
and the reason being is you need to take the swing. You need to go for it, right? It's happening so fast. So I think the first thing is just get started, because I don't think everyone has the perfect playbook yet. I think you can do that, but you have to have structure, and I think that's where you, Adam, and Andy, and Forum 3, stepped in and helped us create that structure. We, treating it like I think I mentioned earlier, like a capability versus a project, like something that's never going to end. Like, how do we just infuse this literacy across our organization? And then I would say measurement and consistent third-party support. If there was a lesson learned for me, I can't do this on my own. I can't even do it with those that are early adopters, because there's so many other things going on. The AI Champions program, I would suggest whoever does this, that's in a position that I'm in now, that's just about to kick off their journey, definitely have AI Champions. I promoted it. I had it in a deck. I didn't execute on it. And I think that was a mistake. I think that's kind of held us back from doing more collaboration within the departments.
Oh, that's interesting.
And if it's not that, get third-party support or bring in someone that can really help run it and be that day-to-day person. Because what I see is our teams have all of these great ideas for GPTs, and they're using GPTs, and they're using it in their daily work, some more than others. But we haven't really sat down with the marketing team and said, all right, what are those 2 to 3 things that you think are enterprise grade that we should invest in as a company and do? Or sit down with the field sales team or the design team and have those discussions. And I imagine if we had those things in place, we probably would have been having those discussions already by now.
Keith, when you look ahead, where do you see Cabi's utilization of AI in the next 6 to 12 months? Like, what are you excited to tackle yourself on behalf of Cabi?
I think it's something similar I shared before, is getting us, what are those 1 to 2 key enterprise grade projects where we are actually scaling, where we're doing something that's helping the overall enterprise, that has some visibility. I think second would be really working with the individual orgs and understanding what their needs are, and how we can work there. And I think just continue for the adoption for those that aren't using it. Coming back to the BI and finance teams, I finally, we put out a ton of Tableau reports.
Swing them back over. Yeah,
they put out a ton of really great Tableau reports. They're really pretty. They go out, and then you go out and ask someone in marketing, did you see the sales report? And they're like, I didn't look at that report, or I don't know what it's saying or anything. I said, well, try deep research and just put the report in and give the report in the chat and have the chat tell you the prompt to write for deep research, and then click deep research, upload the report again, and you'll get a coaching through it of what's happening on there, and you'll have some insights as a marketing analyst. So I think leveraging that a bit more, democratizing BI, predictive analytics would be really cool. Adam, I don't know if you remember, it was probably a year ago. I was trying to take this raw data, Andy, where we were trying to predict why a hostess might cancel a show. And if we could predict that, we could potentially build a program around it to coach our stylists. Like, hey, this hostess might cancel a show on you. You might want to reach out to them with this messaging or
that's
something.
Great.
And I gave it the raw data, and I was prompting with it, asked it to be a data scientist, and it did all of the right things. Right? It was being a data scientist. It was creating things that I never even heard of before, and it was constantly trying to correct itself, but it got lost quite often. using the raw data. And I imagine if we started to do more of these predictive analytics things today, we actually would see some success. So I would add that to the list as well.
That's awesome. Well, Keith, thank you so much for participating. I'm curious, just as we're running out of time, Adam, what jumped out? I mean, you've been leading on behalf of Forum 3, our collaboration with Cabi, and you've heard Keith's comments today. What jumped out at you from Keith's comments or from the journey that you want to highlight for the audience?
3 things from today. One, I thought it was interesting how, Keith, you started this journey as almost coincidentally that you were the CTO. And, so many times people think of this as a tech implementation versus a capability, like you said. And so they'll give it to the CTO, which is fine. But if the CTO is not the person that's inspired to help the company become AI first at a capability level, then that's not going to work. And you need executive sponsorship. You need someone that's inspired to help the organization transform. That happened to be you. You happen to be CTO. And I loved, as CTO, you said, because you couldn't help yourself, well, I want to play a little defense and a little offense. Like, the CTO in me wants to play defense, which is like, I don't want people putting confidential information into like personal versions of ChatGPT and the like. Yeah. But the transformation leader in you was like, I want to play offense. I want to know, how do I upskill and up level the entire organization? So I thought that was an interesting takeaway. The second takeaway is, I loved your example of your support team, because they had gone through an AI first workshop and they participated in your council's activities. By the time a vendor came to them and said, oh, I've got this whiz-bang AI integration, that they had the confidence to know how to like filter that and screen for that and not just hand it to you and ask you what to do. They had their own opinion on it, and they were either excited or not excited. In this case, they were excited, and then they want to take ownership of implementing this. So I feel like that level of AI literacy, right? And they had used the technology because of what you had done. They put them in a position to be AI first as their own department. And that was a key takeaway. And thirdly, I loved your last point, which you kind of reflected on as a lesson learned. But you said, man, I wish I had created a champions team, not just a little council, because council almost is reactive to like, we need an AI policy. We need to be like holding some office hours and doing some things. But you were sort of, now you're saying you want to be able to do an AI impact assessment and think about AI roadmaps and experimentation prioritization for each of these key functions. And that's what you're going to get on now, which is great that you're going to do that. But that was a good lesson learned you shared with us. So I thought those were my 3 takeaways, Andy. It was really good.
That's great, Adam. Yeah, I'll share my 3. No surprise to you. The first, I think we really should have called the podcast in the book "The Holy Shit Moment." I was reminded of Keith's "Holy Shit Moment." I still, I may advocate one day for changing the name. I still think I love that term. I'm glad that they allowed us to at least call the first chapter "The Holy Shit Moment." So that's thing 1. Thing 2, I actually thought that Keith's summary was really the playbook that's in AI first. And the thing that he highlighted, which is they started with a boot camp, and they really started with not going after the big apps or the big AI applications or cost-cutting things. They started with sort of egalitarian employee productivity and getting as many of the employees up to staff, up to speed. And you could see that in the numbers, and that basically built enthusiasm and support for the AI transformation. And so I thought that, which we cover in the book and we preach, and it really, the wins and productivity come from all sorts of small places. And that ties in with the AI champions. And then the third thing that I would say is, I thought that Keith's point about having the CEO involved is something that we've harped on, that AI first starts with AI first leadership. That in this case started with Keith, who was, enthusiastic about it. But I think, having Kate come on board and have their own aha. I literally just got off a phone call with another company in which the CEO is literally at the top of the leaderboard. Like he chats more with ChatGPT, and it's incredible what's happened as a result of his engagement and leadership with the tool and his understanding. So for me, those are my takeaways. On behalf of Forum 3, Keith, thank you for your partnership. Thanks for your time and coming on and sharing your story with our audience. To the audience, thank you all for listening to AI First with Adam and Andy. For more resources on how to become AI First, you can, of course, visit forum3.com. You can download case studies there. We have an email newsletter and executive summaries from case studies. We have lots of amazing material on our website for leaders looking to expand their knowledge on AI. We truly believe you can't overinvest in your AI learning. Onward.